Okay, here's the next module. This one is about how we figured out that we can actually teach and train entrepreneurs. So a long time ago, about 20 years ago, there were startups. That was mostly in the United States. Venture capital was mostly in the United States too. It's become much more common in other parts of the world now too. And in those days, you could say Silicon Valley was sort of the place where it was by far the strongest, like probably 80% of all venture capital and startups were based in that area. And there was a very clear idea on sort of, there was a book, you could say. There were rules on how to build a successful startup. And those rules were basically very simple. First, we need founders that are from a famous university, that have diplomas that sound like woo, and from some elite university, Harvard, Stanford, Berkeley, that list of sort of top universities. That's the team. Then we're going to give them lots of money. We'll let them build a product until it's completely ready. And then once we sort of built the whole company, we're going to hire people, salespeople, to sell it to our customers. So there's 4 steps. I need an A team of people from the top schools, give them lots of money, they'll build it until it's perfect, and then we start selling it. So here's an example. This is a company called Webvan. And Webvan started in 1996. And 1996 is the time when the internet became a hype. So in 1995, we had the first web browser, and then people started to sign up. They could get their first email, and they could go sort of online. Google wasn't there yet, but you had some search engines. Like people was trying to figure out, like, what can we do with this new thing, the internet? So here's Webvan, and Webvan had a promise to its clients. And the promise was, we'll deliver groceries to your door in 30 minutes. And as you can see from that picture, they had, their logo was really nice. They also had crates, they had these vans, and they built a complete company with storage facilities and robots in those facilities that would sort of drive around and bring groceries together for the customer. And they raised a lot of money, $400 million. Then in 1999, so that's 3 years after they were founded, they went onto the stock exchange, an initial public offering as it's called, or IPO. And they got to a valuation of almost $5 billion. Now the thing is, only 2 years later, the company crashed in 2001. And it had yearly sales of less than $500,000 per year. And they had, on a yearly basis, 50 million in losses. That is quite ridiculous, right? So here's a company that raised over 800 million, 400 in venture capital, 400 in a stock exchange deal. And they managed to spend it all in a few years. And then the company went bust, and they hardly convinced any customers to buy their product. Even though this company was built by the book. So they had followed all the rules I just described to you. So the team were people with an MBA diploma from Stanford and Harvard, like A team. They built a very good product. Everybody agreed that what they built, their facilities, the trucks, everything worked fine. It looked great. And they hired salespeople to get the things into the hands of the customers. The only problem was, in the end, after years of work, building this company, building the whole infrastructure, finishing the product, it turned out customers were not interested at all. Like, not interested at all. So if this is a result where $800 million was wasted on what turned out to be a bad idea, if that is the result of following the book, you probably have to rethink the book. Was there not a smarter way to figure out where the customers would be interested in this? Because after spending $800 million, really, we needed to spend $800 million to figure out a simple question. Are consumers interested in this? There would have been many ways to do this smarter. One of the first would be, well, we'll just hire a bus or a truck. We'll put some stickers on it so it looks like a real company. And we're not going to build any of the infrastructure. So we're not going to build our warehouses. We don't do crates. We don't do anything exotic. The only thing is we'll just get your groceries from existing stores. So we'll do a quick beta. We put it online and people can order their groceries. We'll walk into stores that already exist, cost no money. We'll do it with the founding team, cost no salary. And we'll check if people are willing to take our service, if they're willing to pay for it. And you need to do this only for a few weeks to figure out whether customers are really interested. The total cost you would spend on doing what I just described, maybe 50,000 euros, probably less. So instead of spending 800 million, you could have tested this whole thing for probably, I'm actually guessing $20,000. So 800 million versus 20. Why didn't they figure that out themselves, right? Well, because the mindset at that time, more than 20 years ago, was different. So we learned a lot. So basically what happened in the past 20 years is that we rewrote the book on how to do a startup in a smart way. So not spend 800 million, let's just spend 20K to get answers to these questions. This work has been done by several people. If you look in the workbook of ClimateLaunchpad, in the last pages, you will see our sources of inspiration. You see many authors there. Two people I want to mention specifically are Steve Blank, who was started teaching after he did 8 startups, first at Berkeley, then at Stanford, and who wrote a lot about, first in blog posts and then in books, on how you can start your startup in a smarter way. And on the East Coast in the United States, it was Bill Olet, who did 3 startups and then started running the Entrepreneurship Center at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He wrote a book called Disciplined Entrepreneurship, which a lot of you, if you read that book, you'll see that many of the tools that he presents in that book, we actually use in ClimateLaunchpad. So those 2 people have been a big source of inspiration, but there are many more. And over a period of 10 years, we did rewrite that book. And the nice thing about it is because we now officially have books, we can actually start teaching entrepreneurship. And at the core of that, of course, is also our belief that it's not in the DNA whether you can be an entrepreneur or not. We strongly believe in ClimateLaunchpad that everybody can be an entrepreneur. And if we want to fix a tough problem like climate change, we really need almost anybody to be an entrepreneur. We need many people taking leadership, taking on complicated challenges so we as a species can fix this problem. And it's not like we need to fix it in a year, we have like 3 decades for it. I think it's very possible, as long as we do it smartly. So how is this new book different from the old book? Well, there are 4 elements to it. The first is that in the old approach, you would finish the product before you start selling it to customers. The way we do it now is that we start talking to customers before we start designing the product. So it's called customer discovery or customer development. So that is step 1. Before you have your idea, that's great. Now don't go 3 years off in some laboratory building your product. Before you do that, talk to customers. Check if they will need, if they interested in what you are working on. And in ClimateLaunchpad, we also train you how to do those interviews. The second element is the way you look at project management. So in the old model, when you knew what you were going to make for the next 3 years, basically you would make a project roadmap that showed this is the progress that we need to make by month, by month, by month. Endless planning. That has changed dramatically. So how we do it these days is what we call agile project management. And agile means is you learn as you go. So we have a direction. We're not going nowhere. We know we need to go somewhere, but every week we learn and every week we make steps in the development. So it's much more like going back and forth, okay, we've made this, What did we learn from this? And you're much more flexible. So the likelihood of coming up with a project and a product that actually works for the customer is much higher because we're flexible along the way and we can take in lots of feedback from our customers, from our early customers. As a part of that, what is a key skill, and that's the third thing, is that you need to become really, really good at listening to customers. That's like a key skill, and that you can train, of course. And the last thing that is new compared to the old book is that in this new book we talk about something that we call a minimum viable product, or an MVP. So that means that instead of making something that is finished, we're going to make a very small sort of pilot type of product that still can be sold to customers, that can be tested by customers, and then you can build on that. Minimum viable product. Now, one thing, if you look behind me, you see an old man, or well, medium old man, standing to a very old, next to a very old car. This is Henry Ford. And Henry Ford, of course, completely revolutionized the car manufacturing industry by making everything standardized. I don't know if you know the famous advertisement of the T Ford was, you can get it in any color as long as it's black. Like they even standardized in color. Now, Ford has a beautiful quote where he said that if I would have listened to customers, they would have asked me for a faster horse. So listening to customers doesn't necessarily mean that the customer is always right. Okay? So you have to find the right balance between the idea that you have and that you think will provide a breakthrough and really help your customer versus taking in all the feedback of the customer. And that's sort of a balance that you need to find. So there's this lean startup movement that basically says, well, it's all about the customer. I don't fully agree with that. I do think lean startup is okay. It's a good tool. But the key is it's sort of finding the right balance between your idea and what the customer needs, and sort of listening enough so you're flexible enough, but it's not like your customer is running the company, because that way we would not have gotten the T Ford. We also would have not gotten the iPhone, for instance. The iPhone was not based on customer demand because there was nothing like it in the market. But once Apple brought it to the market, everybody that saw it was like, oh, well, I didn't know this was possible, but that's something I want. So that's sort of the balance here. Now let's get to the question here. I already mentioned the minimum viable product. So let me give you the definition behind me here. It's a version of a product with just enough features to satisfy early customers with a product and provide feedback for future product development. So it's really, like, the term is perfect, right? Minimum viable. It's the smallest version with just enough features so early customers can use it and give you feedback so you can develop it further. So the question I have for you in this blog is that you probably have an idea about your product already. And what I want you to write down now, in let's say 100 words, is what would a minimum viable product version of that product look like? What could be your MVP? Take some time to write that down. Have fun.